Hello and welcome to a new episode of Coptic class. In this special lecture, I want to cover a little bit more of what we've learned previously as far as the Greek and Coptic discussion. There's a couple of little things that I consider a little advanced, and so I made sure to include them in this special lecture just by itself before I move on to a new topic. And so in this special lecture, we want to talk about a couple of things. First, we want to talk about how some Coptic words, maybe actually one big word that's made up partially of a Coptic origin word, and the other half is of a Greek origin word. So that's one thing we're going to talk about. I also want to relate what we talked about in the last video regarding Greek double vowel with a couple of double vowels that apply for both Coptic and Greek. And then finally, I think it would be a good idea to go over some example words, determine how they're Coptic or Greek, and also do a very big review of the pronunciation for all the letters that we see here. So with that, let's get started. So the first concept I want to talk about is this notion of how some Coptic words are actually made up of partially a Coptic origin word, and the other part might be a Greek origin word, and they combine together to make one big Coptic word. And this happens a lot, but this is one example, which is the meaning for the word Christianity. The Coptic of it is actually made up of two parts, partially Coptic, partially Greek. So if we look at the first set of letters, the T, May, A, and Tav, those four letters, this part is Coptic, and we'll know why in a minute. And then the part from the Ki till the Sima is all Greek. And so why is this the case? Let's consider the first group. If you look at the first group, the first T is usually a dead giveaway of a Coptic word, but remember how I said that the T sometimes might show up in front of Greek words if it's a feminine article, definite article, za. And so Christianity happened to be a feminine noun, and the T is for the za. So the Christian face, or what we call in English Christianity. So the Christian face or Christianity is this word. So the T is for the za, which is the definite article. So this is not a very strong proof it's Coptic. However, that next part, met, only shows up in Coptic word, with the exception of the word metania we learned last time, but this is not any of the metania related words, and therefore this met is actually in a Coptic word. So the first part, the Coptic part, is shown by Coptic R2, which tells us that if met shows anywhere in a word, beginning, end, in between, that word must be of Coptic origin. And that is the Timet part. Now, Christos, this other part, actually ends with OC. So anything that's not a verb and ends with OC would be a Greek word. And so, according to Greek R5, this part would be Greek. So it's partially Coptic and partially Greek. So, for fun, let's go and do the pronunciation. So T makes TI sound. Then me makes an M. A makes an E. Tav is just a T. And then this, because it's a Greek word, we have to check if the key is followed by hive or not. So if it's not followed by hive, it will make a KH sound, the kha in Arabic, as in the word khair. So KH, then Ru makes an R. Yota, preceded by consonant, followed by consonant. There is no vowel before or after, therefore it must be an I. Sima would be an S. Tav is always a T. And then Omicron is an O, and the last Sima is an S for Timete Christos. And Timete Christos means Christianity. Second thing I want to talk about is point your attention to this notion of double vowel that we talked about. Remember how we talked about three letters that all, when they appear with iota in a word of Greek origin, not Coptic, of Greek origin, they have a different pronunciation. And so we talked about the alpha and iota, the A and iota, and the omicron and iota, or O and iota. And this notion is not new. So I want to use this time to remind you of the omicron and epsilon that we talked about in the video, how it's also double vowel rule, where actually it makes OU. And then I want to remind you of another double vowel rule we learned. This is the omega and iota combination when there is a consonant after it. So remember, if you have omega and iota, you would think AUY, right? Because iota preceded by a vowel, so it must be a Y. Omega makes an AU, so you would think an AUY. However, we talked about how if there is a consonant that shows up after it, it will actually be OI. And then whatever is a consonant will have the same pronunciation. It always gets. And so just remember that there is the omega and iota combination, which is for Coptic and Greek. The omicron and epsilon combination also for Coptic and Greek. And then we have the alpha and iota, E and iota, omicron and iota only for Greek, not Coptic. Now, after that review, let's use this time to try and pronounce a couple of words that you will see in some of your homeworks. And so it will be good ones to cover because it will be a good review of all the Greek and Coptic rules, and also a great review for pronunciation because this will stick with you forever until we finish all the Coptic curriculum. You will always be required to know the pronunciation of every letter with all the rules. And so the more you practice them, the more you get better at them, and so you still get a lot of chances to do this as we go through the course. So first one, this word, when we look at it, first let's determine if it's Greek or Coptic. Not that this will influence anything for this word, but just for the sake of practice. So we know that according to Greek R1, if you have an epsilon, you have to check what it's pronounced as. If it's preceded by alpha or E, which will make the epsilon a V sound, then it could be Coptic, it could be Greek. And this is not the case here. Second thing, if there is an omicron for the epsilon, the omicron and epsilon together makes the OU sound. But again, this would be for both, could be in Coptic, could be in a Greek word. And this is not the case either. This leaves us that this epsilon is a vowel, and specifically is a vowel I. And so, as we agreed before, if the epsilon shows up as the vowel I in a word, this word must be Greek. This is the first hint, Greek R1. And then it ends with the OC, which is according to R5 that we talked about earlier, makes the word Greek. So you have two proofs here that says this word is Greek. Second thing to note about this word is that it's proper noun. There is no letters that actually applies the proper noun rule on it, so we don't really care if it's proper noun or not. But again, I'm trying to review everything with you. So this is Greek and proper noun. So if it had some of the letters like delta, which is different for proper noun, or if it had things like sema followed by me, which will influence the pronunciation of sema, then we have to worry about the fact that it's Greek and that it's proper noun. However, here in this case it doesn't matter, but I just want to review with you guys. So we know this is Greek and proper noun, and the first epsilon must be an I. And remember, this is I as in dead, so it makes kind of an E sound, so E, like dead. Then this is the iota that we know of, before it is a vowel, after it is a vowel. Before or after, in this case it's both, there is no way on earth it will be anything other than Y. Omicron makes an O sound and sema makes an S, so you put the whole word together and you get Eos. And Eos means sun, and it's a Greek word. Next one is another Greek word, and there's a couple of rules that go for it. First, Greek R1 says if a word has a gamma, it must be Greek. Always, always, always. So gamma only shows up in Greek words. That's the first hint, R1. And then R2 says if the word has XE, it's always Greek, with the exception of the word lex, which we talked about is Coptic, and also there's another exception for the XE that I don't want you to worry about. But usually if XE shows up in a word like in this one, this is actually Greek. So R2 would prove that this is Greek as well. And then finally, it ends with the OC for R5 that we talked about earlier. This one, this word, actually knowing if it's Greek or Coptic matters, because this sema right here that I have double underlined in green is followed by me. And in Greek words, that will make this sema a Z, not an S. So this is one where you have to know it's Greek, otherwise you pronounce it wrong. And so this is why sometimes it's really important to know if the word is of Greek origin or not. So this has 3 rules that says it's Greek. So there is no way on earth this will not be a Greek word, and therefore when you see that sema followed by me, it will make a Z sound. So let's go through it and remind ourselves of all the rules. XE always makes an X sound. Omicron is an O. Rho is an R. Gamma, you have to look at the hive group. If gamma is followed by the hive, this would be something like guinea seeds that we learned, where it's actually, if you have the eta, iota, epsilon, or e, then the gamma makes a G sound. So exorge, G sound, because it's followed by one of the hive group. Iota, before it is a consonant, after it is a consonant, there is no vowel before or after, therefore it must be an I. Exorge. Sema, since this is Greek, you have to check what's after it. And this is followed by me, so the sema will no longer be an S, but rather a Z. So exorges, me would make an M always, omicron is an O, and this last sema, because it's not followed by me, therefore it's S regardless if it's Coptic or Greek. So you put the whole word together and you get exorgismos. And exorgismos means magician. Now, next one, another Greek. This one, this time, is a verb to dismember, and because it's a verb, it applies the verb rule, where it starts with and ends with este. And so we talked about how this is according to our series. This has to be that the word is of Greek origin. It cannot be any other way. This is not a word where knowing its Greek matters, but again, like I said, we're trying to review here. So let's go through it. First, A would make an E sound. Ru would make an R. Me is an M. Another A or E is for E. Lolla is an L. Iota, is there a vowel before it? No. Lolla is a consonant. Is there a vowel after? No. Sema is a consonant as well. Remember, if there is no vowel before or after, it must be an I. Then Sema would be an S. Theta, this rule, all of you forget it all the time. Remember, theta you have to check. If it's preceded by Sema or Shy, it will make a T sound. Otherwise, it makes TH as in thin. And in this case, since the theta is preceded by Sema, that will make the theta a T, not TH as in thin. And finally, A would make an E sound. So if you put the whole word together, you get ermiliste, and ermiliste is to dismember. Now let's move on to some Coptic words. The next group is all Coptic. First word has a shy on it, and shy only shows up in Coptic word always 100% of the time. So because the word has a shy, it must be Coptic. And this is shori, which means censor. Shy makes an SH sound. Omicron and epsilon together make an OU. Ru makes an R, and then eta makes 2E. Shori means censor. Then, this next word, when jenkim appears on top of consonant, like the hori, which is not a vowel, a consonant, makes an E sound. So start with an E. Hori, always an H. Me is always an M. Omicron is always an O. Tav is always a T. Ehmut. And ehmut means grace. Next word has both Coptic rule, R1 and R2. R1 because of the Janja. Remember, Janja only shows up in Coptic words. So according to Coptic R1, it will be Coptic. And also the Jen, if it appears anywhere in the word, beginning, ending, in between, as long as the word has Jen anywhere in it, according to Coptic R2, the word must be Coptic. This has both rules for it, R1 and R2, therefore it must be Coptic. And so let's go and pronounce it. So E makes an E. Notice this one, because many of you will be confused, it starts with R. Remember how we said if a word starts with R, if it's a verb, then, and it must be a Greek word, right? So if you remember the rule R3, it says it has to start with R and ends with ST. You cannot just have the beginning of R, it has to be both. In this case, because it starts with R and it's a verb, but it does not end with one of the endings that will make it Greek, therefore it's still Coptic. So even though it starts with R and it's a verb, to cross sea or land, it's not Greek, it's Coptic, because it has the R1 and R2, and also R3 doesn't apply here, because it has to be the big R3 has to be a verb, the beginning and the ending have to be something specific. Cannot be just the beginning only. So there is no way on earth this would be Greek, this must be Coptic. A makes an E, Ru makes an R. Janja, if you remember, this is if it's followed by hive, any of the hive group, it will make a J sound. So Janja, if followed by any of the hive group, it will be a J sound. Iota, you have to check before and after. There is no vowel before or after, so it will be an I. Ni is always an N. This iota has ni before it, which is a consonant, but it has a vowel after. Omicron is a vowel. So remember, before or after. In this case, it's after only, so it must be a Y. Then the Omicron puts an O, and the Ru makes an R for Ergenior. Irgenior, and irgenior means to cross sea or land. So irgenior is the part cross, to cross, the verb. Finally, last word I'm gonna demo for you guys for review purposes is also a Coptic word because it has two rules for it. First, it has the T. If the T is not at the beginning of the word, then it's not the definite article that we talked about. So this actually would be a T, that's for sure in a Coptic word. This would be a dead giveaway that it's a Coptic word even with nothing else, because the T is not appearing at the beginning of the word. So T could only be Greek if it appears at the beginning of the word and it's a feminine definite article there. But if it appears anywhere in between as a T, then this word must be Coptic. So R1 definitely applies here. It's Coptic because of R1. And also R2 that says if the combination of letters that make up the sound ref appears anywhere, beginning, ending, in between, anywhere in the word, then it will be Coptic. So R1 and R2 both make this Coptic. And so now let's go and pronounce it. So Re makes an R, A makes an E. Phi is another hint that this is Coptic also by R1. So you could say that the fact that it has phi would also make it Coptic. So R1 for both the T and the phi. So like this is like Coptic, like really origin Coptic. So F, phi is always an F. T, always TI. Omicron and epsilon together make OU sound. Beta, you have to check. This is not proper noun, so it could be B or V. If it's proper noun, it will always be B. But because this is not a proper noun, this is just the word opponent. Therefore, it could be a B, it could be a V. How do you know if beta makes a B or a V sound? You have to check if it's followed by vowel, any vowel. In this case, because the beta is followed by E, which is a vowel, this would make this a V. And finally, the E would go down. So you get rif2V. And rif2V means opponent. And so with that, I hope you have found this review really good, because it talks about how sometimes you may have Coptic words that are actually partially Greek and partially Coptic. It reminds you of all the double vowel rules for Omicron and Epsilon, Omega and Iota for both Coptic and Greek words, and the three ones down there that are specific to Greek words only. And then we also reviewed a couple of things that reminded us of how a word is Greek or Coptic, and also learned many of the special rules for the letters that we may have forgotten. This is a very exhaustive review. I would watch this video a couple of times and really remember all those rules, because you'll do much better in upcoming homeworks if you got this stuff down. And with that, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time with a new concept, for real this time. Thank you for watching.